Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm giving you guys my review for episode 3 of Loki. This video is a spoiler review, so if you haven't already seen the newest episode of Loki, make sure to go check that out and then come back to this video. I did a live watch party this morning for Loki episode 3, and if you don't want to miss the next one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn notifications on so you don't miss when I upload a new video or when I go live. But without wasting any more time, let's get into it. I want to start off this review by saying I think that overall, in the grand scheme of things over this 6-episode period, I felt like this episode will be the most filler episode we get. And it did feel like a filler, but at the same time, I felt like we got the same amount of reveals as we got in episode 2, except they weren't as visual. They were more in the details of the dialogue, which I really liked about this episode. If you guys are wondering my rankings for the episodes, just after initial watch of episode 3, my rankings are number 1, episode 2, number 2, episode 3, and number 3, episode 1. So I think that that's a fair ranking. Episode 3 and episode 1 might get switched around sometime in the next week. I really like the dialogue in this episode, and that's one thing I think that people will look over again because it doesn't give those visual details. Like, we had that exposure of a Lady Loki in the end of the second episode, which everyone really loved. I love that too, but in this episode I felt like we got just as many reveals, just as much information. It was just spread out throughout dialogue throughout the entirety of this episode. Some of the details we got was that TVA uses variants for their workers, the backstory for Lady Loki / Sylvie, and I'm gonna call her Sylvie because we know that she's Lady Loki. I just like to say Sylvie more because Sylvie's way easier and way faster to say. We found out how Loki and Sylvie were similar and how they were different. We found out that Loki, since he was super close to his mom, Sylvie wasn't close to her mom at all, and she barely remembers anything about her. Also, Sylvie learned out that she was adopted a very long time ago, whereas Loki was told as basically an adult / teenager. Again, like I mentioned before, this episode definitely felt like somewhat of a filler, but I still really enjoyed it. This episode gave me kind of vibes of like a Mandalorian or something along those lines, where it was like the storyline still moved forward, but it was an underlying theme that kept moving the main story forward. So this episode started off with Sylvie basically interrogating the TVA agent that she took over the mind of in the last episode and left in the office room before she escaped with Loki into the other whatever realm, universe, moon, planet thing. And the episode starts off right where episode 2 ended. The action was by far my favorite in this episode. Honestly, this episode might have the best action of any Disney Plus TV show so far. I definitely feel like the action in this episode was so good because Loki had that mixture of hand-to-hand combat and magic, and Lady Loki / Sylvie had the hand-to-hand combat, plus she was literally flying off the walls and the roof, which is absolutely crazy. But on the other hand, like I said before, my favorite parts of this episode were the dialogue, and the reason for this is because they did a great job of balancing the dialogue by dropping key information at random points throughout, and they spaced it out super well. Because if they were talking about, for example, Lady Loki and Loki's common background and then the stuff that wasn't common in their background, and then they dropped little hints later on like the TVA kind of stuff and how the workers for the TVA are all variants. All of those small details sprinkled throughout the entirety of the episode really kept me entertained. And as there were some slower moments in the dialogue, I was thinking about those big details that they dropped like 30 seconds ago. We also didn't see a single second of screen time for Owen Wilson's Mobius this episode and his storyline, which really sucked. Obviously, he's just a side character, but the first 2 episodes really focused on building his relationship with Loki. And this episode really drastically just switched from Loki and Mobius to Loki and Silva. So I think that it was a good job in switching them. It was cool to see that dynamic between Silva and Loki, but I just felt like they kind of moved off of Owen Wilson's Mobius for no reason, or they did it just a little bit too abruptly. But talking about Mobius, the TVA, all that kind of stuff, now that we know that all TVA workers are variants, Loki could maybe expose the TVA and kind of free Mobius, but Mobius doesn't want to believe him because he's like, it's a variant of Loki telling you all these things. She could be lying. Like, we don't know who's telling the truth. We don't know who's lying because we don't have this information firsthand anyway. It's all these different characters telling us different things. So I think that that'll be super cool where Loki gets to choose if he wants to play the hero or if he just wants to leave the TVA behind. It's his choice, and that'll be cool to see him make that decision. I want to move on to the main plot of this episode, which was the escape of the planet storyline, and that was pretty mid in my opinion. It was the biggest negative for me this episode because there wasn't like an underlying goal, or it wasn't that entertaining actually, specifically because this is dialogue. Obviously it related to the storyline of getting off the planet, but it didn't really impact that much. It was more just to give us information on these characters, on the past these characters, how they relate, all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the TVA exposing stuff. We really didn't get any of these dialogue moments truly connecting with the escape the planet storyline. Also, I didn't expect them to not get off the planet this episode, and that was pretty unique because even in other filler episodes of Disney Plus shows, for example, The Mandalorian, there's always some mission that's accomplished by the end of the episode. In this episode, we had basically nothing accomplished when it came to the main storyline. They didn't escape the planet, so excited to see how they do so in the next episode. But Tom Hiddleston did say episodes 4 and 5 are his favorite episodes of the entire series, and I think that these episodes will kick the show into gear and we'll be going full throttle. My only issue is I really hope that episode 5 isn't somewhat of a flashback episode along the lines of WandaVision and the Falcon and Winter Soldier. They felt super slow, character drawn out moments. I think this episode did that enough. I don't think we need an episode right before the season finale. So I'm expecting episodes 4, 5, and 6 to be full throttle. Everything is going at 100% pace down the road, and I'm excited to see where the series goes. And yeah, guys, that was my review for Loki episode 3. Let me know your thoughts of Loki episode 3 in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.